Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I'm the CEO for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar today, Learning Upgrades Remote Learning Activities and our activity plan. And I'm really excited about this because, as we know, we're just in unprecedented times right now. We're in times when so many of us need to be online helping our adult learners. And so I feel like the partnership that we have with Learning Upgrade is it's excellent, and they have a very interesting and wonderful platform that can really help your adult learners. So I'd like to just, before we get started, encourage everybody to put your name and where you're joining us from in the chat box, and we'll use the Q&A for any questions you might have. I'm going to introduce you to our guests today. We have with us Vinod Lobo, who is the president and founder, as well as Drew Robinson, Jen Bainick, and Victoria Neff. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Vinod. Vinod?
Hi there. Thank you, Sharon, for introducing us. And I think Drew will be sharing his screen now. I want to welcome everyone from all around the country. Like all of you, I am at home. Drew is at home. We are all working from home. And we're all trying to figure out how to get our learners onboarded onto something remote so that they can learn, so that they can do their ESL, reading, math, GED, HiSET prep, digital literacy. And so what we're going to be doing today is Drew is going to show you how to onboard your learners onto Learning Upgrade remotely without you being with them. But first, for those of you who are new to Learning Upgrade, he's going to give a brief introduction. What is Learning Upgrade? Those of you who've been with us a while, just you have to just bear through that for a few minutes, and then we're going to get into the meat of onboarding to the remote learning. And after that, Jen Vanek and Victoria Neff from World Ed are going to be talking about different ways you can remotely communicate with your learners to help with the onboarding and the progress and the tracking. And then Drew and I are going to come back on at the end, along with Sharon, and talk about some of the exciting things we're doing with COABE in terms of helping you in the future to fund courses through the Learning Upgrade COABE Challenge. But the first thing I want to tell you is this: Learning Upgrade, for all of you that don't have a Learning Upgrade license, is going to donate a license for you to use during this crisis at no cost. We're going to be sharing a link for you to sign up. And also you could just go on Learning Upgrade right now, click on Remote Learning Action Plan, and sign up. So you're all going to have this license. It's going to be no cost. And you can literally start your learners today, and they could be working on this tomorrow. I'm going to let Drew get started, and I'll be back later to wrap up. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Vinod. So I'll turn my camera on here just to say hi. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names in the chat feed right now during the roll call. So it's exciting to see a lot of you that have already requested one of those remote learning pilots that are now logging in to learn a little bit more and get started. So as Vinod mentioned, I just want to start out with an introduction on Learning Upgrade for those of you that might not be familiar with our program. And then the majority of our presentation here is going to be focused on how to get your site up and running with a remote learning license without having any in-person interaction with your students. So to get started here, what I want to do is cover the challenge. And so, for a lot of you, you were in school one day and then you found out the next day that you were not coming in. Or maybe you had a day where your learners weren't coming in and you had 24 to 48 hours to develop a remote learning action plan. You had maybe a day, a weekend where, your administrators, your state, your district was telling you, hey, you're not going to have any more interaction with your learners. You don't have any time to prep for this. And to throw the extra one in, we have no idea how long this is going to be. So when we got started, some were thinking it might be 2 weeks. That quickly became a month, 2 months. And so now we're under the assumption that it could be the end of April, but realistically, we don't know. This could be something that, we're not able to meet in person with our learners until the fall. And so that's why we really want to focus on this remote learning action plan today, where we can make that rapid transition to remote learning. And you're going to be able to use Learning Upgrade, which is a program that's built around remote learning. This isn't something that we had to develop, at the spur of the moment when we were announcing that we couldn't meet with our learners. This is something we've been doing for years now. And so the key of this, as many of you know from webinars we've done in the past, is Learning Upgrade is available on any web-enabled device. And we're also the grand prize winners of the Adult Literacy X Prize. And that was a competition to see if a company or a program could come up with an app that would give measurable gains for adult learners using a smartphone app. And so why smartphones? Well, all of your learners are going to have a smartphone at home. Students already know how to download and use apps. So the concept of training them to use something new doesn't exist. Everybody knows how to go to an app store, download an app, get started. They have all the skills. This isn't like introducing a computer to someone for the first time. Swipes, drag and drops, clicks, all of these things are second nature. And our students use their phones for calls, text, email, WhatsApp, etc. And so you're able to get started, and there's no training. I'm going to be able to provide you with some quick and easy tools to make this happen. So before I do that, again, this happened about 2 weeks ago where states, districts were shutting down schools. We've had over 150 education providers request these pilots. We've had 43,400 as of this morning lessons completed, and we've have over 10,000 hours spent on Learning Upgrade. So just to show you, this isn't something that's going to take a ton of time to get your pilot to get started. These education providers have really hit the ground running. And I see a few of you who are in the chat that are already in that group that have gotten started. And so, to those of you, congratulations. To those of you that haven't gotten started, make sure you find that link that Vinod shared in the chat to our remote learning page. Sign up for your remote learning pilot so we can get you your remote learning email today, and you'll be able to get started just like all of these other programs. So for those of you that aren't familiar, what is Learning Upgrade? So the Learning Upgrade program is 2 parts. There's the Learning Upgrade app, which is for students, and there's the Learning Upgrade LMS, which is for instructors and admins. So on the student app side, there's 21 courses with 960 lessons, reading, writing, and math from basic to diploma. We have everything, built around standards. I'll be able to share some of our alignment tables with you. And what really separates Learning Upgrade from other programs is our exciting and engaging lessons. We use music, video, and rewards to keep learners coming back. And that's really what's going to make this a huge differentiator between Learning Upgrade and a workbook or a worksheet. You can have your learners open up a workbook. They'll work through a few multiple choice questions. But if they're not understanding the way the paragraph described it, or they got the answer incorrect, then they're really at a loss right there. If there's no one in the home that can help them, the best they can do is go to the back of the book and maybe get a few correct answers for the odd problems. But that book can't come to life. That book can't instruct or teach in a way that you can in your classroom. Well, that's where Learning Upgrade really fits in nicely. Every single one of our lessons has instruction, and then there's practice questions. And unlike a workbook, when they get something incorrect on a practice question, a voice comes on and explains exactly what they did incorrectly. We're going to show them how to answer it correctly, whether that be in a formula or depending on the lesson that they're working on. We use arrows, drag and drop, colors to really show them how to get the answer. And then most importantly, they're going to be able to repeat, that question later, and we're going to switch around things and make sure that they really understand the content. They can learn everywhere. So that can be, at home, if they have a smartphone, then they can also, maybe it's a shared device. They can open up a Chromebook, but they'll be able to access their account on any web-enabled device. And then you as an instructor and admin, without ever seeing your learner, can view reports, track progress, and see exactly how every single one of your individual learners is performing. So this is what it's going to look like. The learners are going to enroll in one course, but this is the courses screen. So as you see, this is going to look a lot like what they see in other programs. We have all 21 courses, our English, math, and then our skill courses. All 21 courses have 60 lessons, and we align these like stories in Instagram or Facebook. So our learners are very familiar with clicking on these circular icons, and you'll see at the top, that's to encourage that binge learning. And that's, just built around, everybody's familiar with binge watching on Netflix or YouTube, where you start out with the intent to consume maybe one episode, one video on YouTube, and before you know it, you're 5 or 6 episodes in. And it's the same thing here. We get learners started on a lesson in a course, and before they know it, they've, completed 5 or 6, and they're on that path to proficiency in math and English. So if you click on one of these courses, this is what the lessons are going to look like. So here we have everything. And so let's say you're enrolled in English 5. You're going to open English 5. And as I mentioned, every single one has 60 lessons. You're going to start with 1 and then work your way through to 60. So every single one of these lessons begins with the instruction. After the instruction, you'll get practice questions. So to move from one lesson to the next, you need to answer those practice questions at 75% or better and earn 100 points. And so depending on the difficulty of the lesson, for something like main idea, you might get 5 to 10 points per correct answer. If you're doing something like geography KWL 35, you're going to be reading longer paragraphs, picking out parts. So those you might get 20 points for a correct answer. They're more involved. And then again, once you get 100 points, if you have 75% or better, 75 to 89, you'll get a bronze, 90 to 94, you'll get a silver, and then 95 to 100, you'll get a gold. Once all lessons are completed, that's when you earn the certificate, and you can get a bronze, silver, or gold certificate. If you'd like to see what is in a Learning Upgrade course, if you'd like to see lesson lists, you can go to learningupgrade.com. In the main menu, you'll see the courses link, and you'll see here where it says more info. You can click on math lesson list. You can click on our CCRS standards. You can see our CASAS and TABE placements. So in other webinars, we've gone into more detail there. I want to focus on remote learning for this one, but just want to let you know that this is available. This is what the, our CCRS and TABE placements. So if you want to see, for an English or math, where they would align based on your scores, we have these available. Our lesson list, that has every single lesson name on there. So, let's say you want to assign lessons. You can unlock Learning Upgrade courses. So by default, they work one at a time. But let's say as an instructor, I say, hey, I want my learner, to work on their multiplication facts. Then you can just unlock it, look at your lesson list and say, hey, I want you to work on 10 through 12 today. I'll check the report for that. And then you can assign new lessons tomorrow. This is the CCRS alignment. So if you want to work on, a standard, say, hey, rational numbers, math 6, and then this can help you with your assignment. So, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 49. I'd like you to complete those lessons this week. And so again, these alignments are just ways to help you frame your instruction. And again, all of this is available at learningupgrade.com on the courses page. The key to Learning Upgrade is that learner engagement. So you'll see on the left here, this is what some of the instruction would look like. A lot of our instruction is in the form of a song to help learners remember some of the more complex lessons that we're working on. And so you'll see, it's not just a boring formula, line after line in a workbook. We're going to show you what all of where these numbers are coming from, how these formulas are put together. And then when we're answering questions, we want to bring things to life. And so you'll see that on the right here. This is volume of a rectangular prism. So after the instruction, then you're going to answer questions. And so you'll see you have your prism here. You're going to be answering questions about units. And then in the formula, everything starts out as green. You're going to drag and drop to complete the formula. But what happens if you get it wrong, like here? A voice is going to come on, say it was incorrect. The red in the formula is where it's going to show you that your answers were incorrect. We'll leave it in green for those that were entered correctly. And then we're going to show you the formula, drag and drop those numbers. So it's not a mystery why you came up with the incorrect answer. We want to make sure that your learners understand. Then we're going to give them another question that's scale on the last one. So if it's correct, it'll get a little more difficult. If it's incorrect, it'll be a little more easy. And then they'll be able to work their way up and earn those points. As I mentioned, it is available everywhere. So if your learners have a smartphone, tablet, Chromebook, they'll be able to access Learning Upgrade when they create their account. So Learning Upgrade for admins and teachers. This is the second part of the Learning Upgrade program. And this is the focus of today's webinar, with a focus on remote learning. Some of you may have joined webinars in the past, and our approach has always been blended. We have a huge focus on using Learning Upgrade in the classroom as an asset for teachers and also for students in tandem with what you're doing. For this, now we're working in the world where all of this activity needs to take place in a world where you never get to actually see your students. So we have a 4-step plan for this. Number 1 is teacher training. That's what we're doing in the webinar today. And so I want to cover steps 2, 3, and 4 in this training. Step number 2 is the most important for remote learning, and that's student onboarding. So I want to go through student onboarding in detail. Once your learners onboard and get completing lessons, you're going to need to motivate and track your students from home. And then once you motivate and track, you can identify which learners are doing well, which learners need a little help. And that's step number 4. So we can celebrate student success and then also help learners that might be falling behind. So, step number 2 for that student onboarding, when we're in a remote class setting, we need to rely on our students to self-enroll. So we've made our self-enrollment as simple as possible. So for those of you, again, we're gonna, show this page a few times, but if you wanna get started with the Learning Upgrade pilot now, I highly recommend that you either click it now and sign up, or just, bookmark that link. So this is what our remote learning page looks like. And then you'll see that button on the left, free pilot sign up. Click on that, you can sign up and we'll be able to get you started. Once you fill out that link, we're gonna receive your submission and then we're gonna respond with all of the instructions you need to get started. You're gonna get your email that looks like this. In this case, it's my name, Drew Robinson. We have approved your pilot, and that very first block is gonna be for student self-enrollment. And so we walk through that 4-step process in the email. So, number 1 is the training, we're covering that. Number 2, student self-enrollment. Number 3, tracking and monitoring. And then we also walk you through the celebrating student success. So for the self-enrolling for your learners in a remote setting, this is the most important. And so we start there. So we're gonna give you your code, and then you'll see in blue that class code sheet. That's really all you need to get your learners started. You'll click on that, and we're gonna give you a 1-page guide that you can share with your learners to help them self-enroll. So this class code, this 7 digits, is all they need to get started. They'll download the Learning Upgrade app, and then they can select, they'll launch the app, they'll select Get Started. Then they can click to start with English or math. They can always add more courses later, so this one is just whatever course they'd like to start with. Now they're gonna see their course selection. So with remote learning settings, sometimes we'll have them directly enroll into a course. What we like to see to keep things simple is just have everybody click on placement. And that way the very first thing they do is they'll take an assessment from Learning Upgrade. We'll enroll them in the appropriate course based on their performance. After selecting their course, this is the most important screen. So your learners are gonna enter in their first name and last name. The student ID, email, or phone is voluntary. The most important is this class code. So again, on this class code sheet, that's 4701260. They'll enter that class code here into the class code field. After they click go on that, we're gonna issue them their username, password, and school ID. This is the login that's gonna enable them to log in anywhere. So they can log in on any device once they have that. And then they're gonna see their screen here. If they directly enrolled, they'll be able to click on the course they enrolled in, but they can click on any one of those grayed out course icons and add another one. So if they started out on math 8 and they want to also work on English, all they need to do is click on those grayed out icons. So going back to this, important self enrollment guide, two options. If you're viewing it on mobile, you can take a screenshot of it. Take a screenshot and then you can share it via text, email, or WhatsApp. You can share it on Facebook if you have a group, Google Classrooms, whatever it is you're using to communicate with your learners. You can also click the print button. There's a print button on this page. And then when you click print, you have the option to save as a PDF and then save it as a PDF and share it that way. And so that's a great way to get that out to your learners. So that's everything. Self-enrollment is as simple as that. Your learners just need to download the app, select a course, enter class code, and from that point on, they're off and running. They'll be able to get started from there. So now that your learners have self-enrolled, how do you motivate and track your learners? And so for that, I want to take a live look. It helps a lot to see it in real time as opposed to in slides. So let's go to this view through the, I'm using Chrome here. And so all of you, again, you're going to receive this email. So the first thing we did is student self-enrollment. I walked you through that self-enrollment process. The next block is going to be tracking class and student activity. So we make it really clear here as well. Number one is you're going to sign in. Go to learningupgrade.com, click login. I'll provide you with your own teacher username, password, and school ID. So, everything will be in this email. And then step number 2 here is, how do you view quick reports and account revisions? So for the rest of this presentation on my side here is I want to go through this email so that when you do receive it, you'll know exactly where everything is and how to access what I'm showing you. So again, you go to our homepage. Those of you that need to get started, you can click on free pilot here. When you click on free pilot, you'll fill out this information to get started. And then once you receive your email, you can get logged in. So you have your username and password. When you log in, for those of you that have already had your learners self-enroll, they're going to automatically populate into your class. So your class is going to be populated just like this. You don't have to do anything once you've given them that self-enrollment information. So number 1, in the Students tab, we're going to click on the Student Monitor. This is a great way to monitor student activity. So just a quick overview, when you log into your teacher account, we have it broken down into these 5 tabs: students, courses, classes, teachers, and reports. I always mention the name of the tab in the instructions. So in the Students tab, we click on the Student Monitor button. And so here we are in the Students tab, and we're going to click on the Student Monitor button. So here we see we're loading our class. We have 105 courses loading here. And once they've loaded, we're going to see them display in the Student Monitor. And as I mentioned in the slides, every Learning Upgrade course has 60 lessons. So you'll see a tile that represents those from left to right, 1 to 60. And then you're going to have a few options if you'd like to make some changes to the way you view this. You can sort and do different things here. I like to do a level sort. This helps me see the learners that are getting a lot of courses completed, and then I'll click it again to see those that haven't gotten started at all. So that level sort is helpful if you just want to get an idea of where your learners are. When you hover over any of these tiles, we're going to tell you the name of the lesson, the date played, the number of tries, and the scores. And then on the left here, we're going to give you an abbreviation for the course. So this is English 2. We have reading, English 5, comprehension, and then it'll be an M for the math. Just some quick things you can take from this. You don't have to go through and look at everything on the Student Monitor. What I like to have teachers look at is, if you see red, you'll see our guide down here. And if you see red, that means they didn't get 75%. And so that's an opportunity to hover over. This one, it was sentences A to I. They only tried it one time and got 71. That's okay. What you want to keep an eye out for is if you see something where a learner's attempted it multiple times or they have a really low score, and that's an opportunity to reach out, send a text message, call them on the phone, see if it's something they need to work on, maybe even hop on a Zoom meeting like this and work through that content. The other thing you want to keep an eye out for is if you see a learner that obviously doesn't have any activity, they're just not working on it, or if there's a lot of bronze, maybe here we're on English 2, the learner's getting by, but not with very high scores. This one, they're only attempting it one time, so that's okay. But if you see that they're struggling, every single lesson is bronze and they've tried it 4 or 5 times, that might be something where we want to talk to them and say, hey, let's go back to English 1, work on English 1, and then once you're done with that, you can start with English 2. So that's what I wanted to cover in the student monitor. That's the best way to just quickly view a report to see how your class is doing, see how your learners are doing on their individual courses. After the student monitor, in the students tab, the next FAQ that we get from instructors and also from learners is, how do I retrieve account information? When your learners are self-enrolling, they might lose that, they might switch devices and forget. So as an instructor, we can always pull that up. In the students tab, we just click on print passwords. When we click on print passwords, we get a list of everybody, their username, password, and school ID. We have a bunch of different viewing options, and there you can retrieve it, copy and paste it into a text message, and your learner is going to be able to enroll right away. Number 3 is in the courses tab. You will find the report button for individualized data. So as I mentioned in the student monitor, if you see something where a learner is struggling on a course and you're just seeing it in numbers, but you need a little more info, we'll click on the courses tab and you'll see every single one of these courses has a report button. And this will give you an opportunity to really dive into how they're performing. So this one here, let's say English 5, they're on 31. I saw some things in the student monitor where they were playing things multiple times, maybe had a red that was a low score. Let's click on that individual report. So we'll see the individual report. This learner is actually performing really well, but you're going to get subject area scores that'll let you, see how they're doing on all the different content areas. Things like last played, total number of times, so they've spent 4.7 hours, their current level. And then you're going to get a graph here. So this one, not much to look at. They're doing really well. Blue is going to be the initial score. So they've got 100 every one of their first attempt. And then orange is the high score. So we'll see here, this is verbs. We can hover over to get that too, verb in perfect tense, lesson 22. And they started out with a 95 and then worked it up to 100. If you see something like this, there's nothing to take note of. What you want to keep an eye out for is if you see valleys that haven't been filled in, or the orange is still a low score. And that's just a quick way to eyeball this individualized course graph to dive in on data. If I were to see this really low, then I'd say, okay, that's an area I can work on. And then I can double check it here in the table. Looking at times played, again, nothing jumps out at me here. The max is 2 times played. Max is 30 minutes on a lesson. What you want to keep an eye out here for is if you see a 4 or 5 under times played, you see higher than 60 minutes for the minutes played, that's a lesson that my learner's struggling on, especially if it's something that they haven't moved past yet. That's an opportunity to reach out and work with them on that content. So again, that's in the courses tab, and every single one of your learners' individual courses has an individual course report. So the next thing is number 4 is, let's say you did want to unlock, or let's say your learner's on English 4 and they don't actually need the first 15 lessons. How can I move them ahead? So every single one of these has a report. They also have an edit. So let's say English 4 here, they're on lesson 1. I want them to start on lesson 20. You can click the edit button, type in 20, we'll click update, and now our student is on English 4, lesson 20, and they can continue on from there. If we want to unlock the entire course, we can just type in 60. That unlocks all 60 lessons, and now I can assign anything that I'd like in there. And so that's a way to unlock, move your learners around if you don't want them to have to go through one at a time, like the standard format. So those are the quick reports. Again, everything is found in the Students tab with Student Monitor and Print Passwords. The others in the Courses tab can be found under the Individualized Course Reports or the Edit button. And so now let's move on to the in-depth reports. And so this is if you want to get a more in-depth look at how your class is doing. For that, we're going to go to the Reports tab. And in the Reports tab, we're going to see we have Custom Reports, and that's really where I want to focus today. So the first one, we're going to see that Student Progress Report by date. That's the most important one. This is essentially the student monitor in a table format. So what you want to do is you can have a start date and an end date. So you can go back as far as you need to for those of you that have existing Learning Upgrade accounts. If you just want to see your activity during this remote time in the last 2 weeks, you can do that. For those of you that are going to be starting out, you can just leave the start and end date as is over the first few weeks, just because you're not going to have a lot of activity yet. As you get going, you might want to check a weekend or a week or a day, and you'll be able to view things that way. So let me talk about some best practices here. Number one is if your learners are enrolled in multiple courses, you'll see a course on each row. So our student here is in English 2, English 3, English 4, English K. You'll see our last played, hours played. And so every single one of these courses is going to show. If you want to clean things up and say, hey, I just want to see how they're doing on English, just go English totals. And now we're going to sum up all of their English. So even if they've worked on 4 English courses, we're just going to give you one number. You can do that for math as well. Or if they're working on a bunch of different English and math, my favorite is all by student. When I click on all by student, now we're just going to tell you their total time on task for Learning Upgrade. Doesn't matter which courses they're logging into. We're not interested in that. We just want to see the total time on task. You can select all by student. As you see here, you can get as granular as you want. You can just look at your learners that are only working on English Upgrade 1 and K. This is useful for those of you that are working in an ELL setting. You have some pre-literate adults, maybe some that are a little higher level. Let's say I just want to work on the very early. You can select any course you like. For now, we're going to go all by student. And so we're going to see the totals now. And so the next thing you'll want to do is sort things. So by default, we have it sorted by last name. That tends to be how most of our instructors have their class rosters. But a helpful way to look at it is to click on hours played. So if we click on hours played, now we'll see our learners that have completed the highest number of hours in Learning Upgrade. And as you'll see here, every single one of these links can be clicked. And so if you want to get a more in-depth look at how your learners are performing, this is a good way to do it. So here I'll click on 37.4, and now I can get an individualized student session time report. So for those of you that are running a remote classroom where you're asking your learners to be online in a certain time period, or you're saying, hey, I need you to spend 2 hours on Learning Upgrade a day, 2 hours on math, 2 hours on English, you can kind of see that in the larger report, but you really want to view the session report for each individual student to ensure that they're logging in when you need them to log in. For those of you that aren't running that strict of a remote classroom, this is just a good way to see when your learners are logged in. If you're going to be contacting them, getting in touch, congratulating their success if they're working at midnight to 4 a.m. But you'll see here, you'll see a start time and an end time, minutes, score, the name of the lesson, and then also the device. So here we can tell our learners working on a PC, our device is Windows, and we can see every single one of their sessions here. So that's important in the student progress report by date. Again, the key takeaways are you can set a start and an end date. You can sort any one of these headers, and then you can also group the hours by student, math, English, or you can go back to the default all by course to see how your learners are doing on each one of the courses they're in. So back to our email, that was the first one, the student progress report by date. The next in-depth report we're going to look at is the student time report by date. So again, in the reports tab, now we're going to look at the student time report by date. And this is going to give you that session data for your entire group now. So instead of viewing it for an individual learner, we can pull this up and see how our entire class is spending their time. You can set a start and an end date again, and you can again select courses. So you can do all by course, all by student. Here we're going to leave it all by course so we can get an idea of when learners are logging in and which devices they're using. So we'll see here, our first student is Android, iPhone, iOS, that's an iPhone or an iPad. You'll see LNX, that's Linux for a Chromebook. You'll see Mac for a MacBook, and then you'll see Windows if they're on a PC. And here you can really get an idea of when they're logging in. So we'll see here, this learner is just really jamming away. So we have 5:30 a.m. So we're completing lessons right when we wake up. And we also have 11 p.m. So this really ties back into that binge learning I was talking about at the beginning is, remote classrooms, And having access to such a powerful learning tool like Learning Upgrade is going to empower your students to work on content when they have the free time. A lot of adult education, we're going to have adults who are, shelter in place at home. Their students, their children are not in school. And so their day's going to be a little choppy. And so they might have to work on Learning Upgrade when the time presents itself. Could be early in the morning, could be late at night. It could be when the kids are watching a movie. But having Learning Upgrade is really going to empower them to be able to access this content when it's convenient for them. So again, this is the student time report by date, and that's the report that's going to enable you to look at all that session data. So covered signing in, quick reports, in-depth reports, and then the final thing is just viewing certificates. So for your learners that have completed Learning Upgrade, you can go back to the student monitor. And when your learners start completing an entire 60 lessons, you're going to want to see that, celebrate student success. So what you can do is in the student monitor, you'll see this toggle at the bottom for has certificate. You can just click that, and then every single learner that has a certificate, you can click those and print those off and see exactly how they did. So that walks you through everything on the tracking class and student activity. This final thing at the bottom is if additional teachers at your site would like to join onto your account, I provide some instructions on how they can get started. Really quick and easy for them to do that. Or they can fill out the pilot form, and in the notes section, just let me know the name of the site and I'll be able to link those up. But that's everything I wanted to cover on this part of the remote learning classrooms. Just to recap quickly before I hand things over, most important thing, number one, is going to be going to our homepage, filling out this form if you don't already have a license or a pilot to get started. You'll receive an email that looks exactly like this, and I'm going to provide you with these instructions for self-enrollment. You're going to click on your class code sheet. It'll open just like this. You can toggle between English and Spanish, send to printer to save as a PDF, or do a screen grab to share with your learners. Once those learners have self-enrolled, you're going to see them automatically populate your class. They're going to start completing lessons, and then that's when you can do quick tracking with the student monitor, retrieve their information with print passwords. In the courses tab, we can view individual reports. We can edit their course to move them ahead. And then we can also view in-depth reports with the student progress report by date and the student time report by date. So that's just a quick overview on getting started with a remote learning classroom. I hope you found that informative. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. But for now, I'm going to stop my share and hand things over. And you're going to get some information from WorldEd on how to utilize some additional tools to help bolster your remote learning classroom.
Hello, everyone. This is Jen Vanek. I'm here with my colleague, Victoria Neff. I'm the Director of Digital Learning and Research for the Ed Tech Center at WorldEd. And what we do is help programs untangle issues like needing to work completely remotely with our distance learners. In fact, we've created a new distance learning support site, the link to which I'll chat the link to that in just a sec. But now I'd like to introduce you to Victoria Neff, our Assistant Director at the Ed Tech Center, who has worked with National Immigration Forum on completely remote workplace ESL programming. Thanks so much for having us here, and go ahead, Victoria.
Thanks, Jen. It's great to be here. I'm excited to share learnings from our work with the National Immigration Forum. So just to give you all a bit of context about the project I'll be talking about, the National Immigration Forum launched an initiative called the Skills and Opportunity for the New American Workforce program. And what it is a workplace English training program for workers with limited English proficiency. And it is contextualized across several industries, including retail, rideshare, and hospitality, and several others. Another thing to note about this program is that it's a blended learning program where 60% of the curriculum is online self-paced learning modules, and then the other 40% is delivered through face-to-face instruction. But 12 months ago, we piloted a new model with the National Immigration Forum wherein the 40% face-to-face instruction was converted to a virtual remote model. So all of that instruction was adapted for that virtual model, and you'll see this screenshot here of the conferencing tool that was used. So what we learned from our work with the National Immigration Forum, one of the things that was so important was this idea of proactive support. So rather than providing tech support that is reactive, so responding to questions from students, responding to technical issues that arise, the team provided proactive tech support, which looked like outreach to students before classes started. So, what an example of that might be reaching out to the student 1 or 2 weeks before the program is expected to start with a message, hey, Maria, this is your teacher, Claudia. It's important that you have access to the app before classes start. Here's how you do it. And sending, that message before the program started. And what was really important about that was, the program was able to catch any issues that might arise. So if a learner had issues accessing the application or, with logging in, they were able to troubleshoot that before classes started. And that high touch real-time support was very valuable and effective. The other thing, that builds off of what Drew presented on is this idea of data-driven outreach. So using login and progress data to inform that initial outreach is a really effective strategy. So an example of that is, logging into the dashboard and to the extent that you can with the tools that you're using. Learning Upgrade is a great example, being able to look and see the last time the learner has logged in, or if they've logged in at all. And that's a really great strategy for remote onboarding. The other thing that we saw was this peer-to-peer tech support. So as students became more comfortable with the technology, helping other learners that were still, getting confident and comfortable with this new learning environment. So that was something that was really interesting, and we're excited to see more of that. The other thing I'll mention that we found to be very effective for remote onboarding is the importance of creating very simple, short messaging for remote learners. So, to the extent that you can make the instructions very simple and focused around one specific task. So that may be logging in or downloading the app or tool, or navigating how to navigate the tool. This is very important. Not to try to put everything, all these steps all in one place and try to separate it out a bit. And I'll give some examples of that after this slide. And the other thing that I'll mention as well is the importance of being clear about technical requirements in advance. So do learners need an email address? Do they have one? Making sure that you catch all of those requirements in advance. And anything else they may need to know in order to successfully access the tool. And again, just this idea of providing ample resources and support for onboarding. So, what we've found to be really effective in our work is mobile messaging, and then also reinforcing key messages in the tool or in the classroom, in the virtual classroom. So some examples of that, these are the step-by-step instructions that we sent via text message to learners. And again, the instructions that you'll see here are instructions for the virtual conferencing tool that was used for the 40% face-to-face instruction. So as you can see here, 3 steps to success. Here is how you, here are the things that you need to do to enter the classroom effectively. We also put these steps in the slides, and I'll show that in a little bit. Another thing that we did is we created short videos and sent those via text and included them as well on the learner's dashboard. So these are just 2 screenshots, examples of 2 different videos that we created. One is how to log in to your online learning platform, and then the other one was how to use the conferencing tool. So, these are very simple screencasts that we captured. And then the other thing that I wanted to show you was what we displayed in the virtual classroom. So this is actually a slide that was used in the virtual conferencing tool. So you can see here, we again reinforce those messages of making sure you choose microphone when you join so other students can hear you. Make sure you press the thumbs up if you can hear yourself. And again, this is a slide that we showed in the classroom. So reinforcing where the mute button is, how to unmute and mute yourself, and then how to share your video. So to the extent that you can, reinforce those key important steps, that's great. We found that to be really effective. So I'll pause there and turn it over to Jen, who's done fantastic work building out our site where many resources on remote onboarding are currently shared. No, Jen, if you want to say anything about...
Thanks, Victoria. I was just having trouble unmuting. So I've been chatting a few links throughout Victoria's presentation. The first is actually, if you scroll up a little, you'll see the link to our Tips for Distance Learning website. We've created a web resource that is a nice balance between, responding to the crisis and scaling up very quickly, balanced with, okay, now I'm 3 or 4 weeks and I need to circle back and figure out how to use evidence-based effective practice in order to sustain the distance education opportunities that are set up. So you can check out the website, there's a bit.ly there. We're also hosting weekly webinars. We're calling them distance education strategy sessions. I've just chatted the link for registration. We have topics for both administrators and for teachers. And so we hope that you'll join us there every Friday at 1 Eastern. And Victoria, there is a question here. Debbie asks, how did you make the screen visuals with instructions?
So we just use PowerPoint. All of these, I think this was the question from Debbie. How did we make these? This was just made in PowerPoint and then downloaded and converted to a JPEG file that was text to the students.
That's great. Are there any other questions that about the virtual onboarding?
And what I'll do is also chat a report on, more learnings from this work that we did with the National Immigration Forum, and lessons from remote onboarding as well as lessons on adapting content for virtual environments.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Vinod and Drew and Sharon, for giving us a chance to share this work.
Yes, thank you. All right, so just to close here, I just wanted to talk about that 4th step, which is going to be celebrating student success. So as I showed you in the first part, there's that internal, where you can, print certificates, but then there's also, the COABE Learning Upgrade Challenge. And, that's our push, to really help reward the programs and the learners that are, going above and beyond. So there's going to be some prize categories there for top program, top instructor, students who complete the most hours, lessons, and certificates, We're going to be, looking at personal impact stories, and then also working on, the COABE Learning Fund. So I'm not sure if you wanted to come on and say a few words about that, Sharon, to close out before we had to open up for questions.
Sure. So first of all, I just want to, again, thank everybody here that's participated and thank our friends at World Ed as well and the Ed Tech Center. They're one of the strand partners at our national conference, I mean. So we value them greatly. And then this Learning Upgrade Challenge, this has been just a wonderful partnership. And the idea really is to help as many of you in the field get up on this Learning Upgrade mobile fund as possible. And I was going to try to share my screen, but I'm having difficulty with that.
I just stopped mine, so you should be able to share now.
Yeah, just 1 second here. So if you go to our COABE website, you'd be able to see this right here. And as you scroll down, you can see all the information about what this is. And our goal really is to transform the lives of 1 million adult learners. So all the information that you need is here. But our goal is to help as many of you as would like to get on board with this to sign up today. And throughout, we'll have a few more presentations like this. But this is really a very unique opportunity. As you can see, here's some information about the use of smartphones and the value of the Learning Upgrades work and the app. So here it is, the Learning Upgrade app. As you all know, they won the Barbara Bush Foundation X Prize, which we thought was really exciting. And that's where the partnership began, was through that. So I just want to invite you all to join, and just want to say that from the COABE perspective, we think it's a great time to get on board, especially as so many of our teachers are trying to ramp up and have the tools in place that they need to be able to provide online learning for their adult learners. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and turn this back over to Drew and to Vinod.
All right, thank you, Sharon. And that's really what we wanted to focus on is, getting everybody started right away with Learning Upgrade. You're all in a transition period where we're going to be quickly having to adapt to this remote environment. We don't know how long it's going to be. And, some of the things we're hearing is this could be cyclical initially until the vaccines develop. So we just want to make sure that we're getting off to a fast start, but also providing you with the tools that if this shutdown is a little bit longer, that if it does go through the fall, that we can help support that. If it's something where maybe the next spring we're having to, take a look again and be out for a month, to make sure that every single one of our adult ed providers has a program, has the tools, and is able to quickly and seamlessly, pivot to a fully remote classroom when needed. And so that's why I encourage everyone, to get started. Again, just go and fill out that pilot form. We're going to be processing every single one of those today. We'll be sending them out today and tomorrow. So if you don't have an email by end of day tomorrow, make sure to check your spam folder. We'll be having all those out by tomorrow so that you can get started before the weekend. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can reach us at info@learningupgrade.com, or you can reach me personally at drew@learningupgrade.com. If you have any additional questions, or if there's something unique about your program that you'd like to go over with me before getting started, feel free to reach out and I'd be more than happy to help. Other than that, I wanted to leave 5 minutes here. If you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat to ask those now, and we'll be able to get all of those answered for you. Thank you so much for attending today. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing all of you get started soon.
So Drew, we had a few questions that I think we should address because a lot of people asked.
Sure.
One was, when will the free license end?
Absolutely, yeah. So for this initial period, it's going to be for 3 months. So I know a lot of you will, talk is, maybe April 30, end of May, but just to be safe, we're going to be giving free access all the way until the end of June. So June 30, and that's for as many students, as many teachers. It really is unlimited for everybody that doesn't have a current Learning Upgrade account. We want to be able to make sure we can support you as you branch out to something new. So June 30, 2020.
Okay, great. And I also wanted to mention that COABE will send out a link to the videos. Many of you have asked if you can see the presentation again. You'll be getting a link to the video by email from COABE. And some people asked whether our program Learning Upgrade can be used in one-on-one tutoring sessions. And we're used quite a bit around the country by library tutoring. Sometimes it's used while waiting for a tutor to be available. Sometimes blended with the tutoring, and sometimes tutors actually sit one-on-one with learners with their phone or with a tablet and do lessons together, and then they will also work at home. So yeah, it's used a lot in tutoring settings. So do you see any other questions, Drew?
I just have one from Vicky, just asking our time zone. So we're located in California, so we're Pacific time. Feel free to reach out anytime. You know, we get our day started pretty early. And so the best thing though is if you have some times that work for you, when you reach out to me at drew@learningupgrade.com, send me a few times I can call you. And then I'll be able to schedule something and make sure we have a block of time where we can go over things. So we are Pacific time, but flexible in scheduling time to talk or meet on Zoom if needed. And so let's see. So
someone asked what level do we start? And our early levels are all the way at the beginning. That means NRS1 or beginning ESL. We start teaching the alphabet and basic vocabulary and letter sounds. So, so yeah, we start all the way at the beginning. Are there any other questions, Drew?
No, but one question that has come up with a lot of parents and instructors is, you know, what about my kids? And so, you know, that's something that if you as an education provider would like to have more of a two-gen approach, you know, we're seeing a lot of students that have had their school shut down, and then you know, they're not really, you know, getting access to the tools they need. So if you have a situation where your adult ed learners are using it, hey, my kid would like to use it as well, you know, we can definitely you know, help support in this pilot period. To have that two-gen approach and, you know, have the whole family working on Learning Upgrade. The key there is to make sure that they're all creating their own separate accounts, and that way you can track and report, you know, based on your learners, and then their children won't be on those reports. So, you know, if you do have, you know, a situation where you'd like to do that, make sure you reach out to me, and I'll be able to help you set that up.
Great. Well, it looks like we are at the top of the hour here, and I just want to, again, thank everybody. We have a very short poll we're going to launch here. We just ask that you take a minute and complete that. I don't know if you all can see that. Can you guys see that? And if you just go ahead and complete the short poll, and then we wish you all well, and we hope to see you at the next webinar. Thank you so much, Vinod and Drew and Jen and Victoria, and to everybody who joined us.
Thank you for having us, Sharon.
Thanks.
We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sharon.
Our pleasure. Thank you for the
Thanks, Sharon.
partnership. Yes, thank you. Bye now.
Bye.